I woke up with snow on the ground for the first time today. My name is Katie Draxel, and I am the MIRECS Program Manager. And MIRECS has been around in Michigan since 2009, and I'd like to welcome the new users as well as our existing users who have been using MIRECS since 2009 for RPS compliance and as well as voluntary usage. So what we'll talk about today is adding the energy waste reduction compliance onto MIRECS, and we're very happy to be able to do that. That's always been in the works. We've had some questions on why, and even since our first in 2009, that's always been in the works to add EWR compliance, and we're happy to add that validity on. With the new law changes back in 2016 that took effect last year, this has been in the works, and again, we're happy to be able to add the validity onto that. I do want to encourage each of you as we go through the training today, if you have additional questions after the training, please do reach out to either APX staff or MPSC staff with additional questions. And even as the months go by and you're using the system, if you have suggestions, we are very welcome to those as well. So thank you for joining us today, and you can take it away, Doug.
Thanks, Katie, and thank you for drawing attention to questions. We encourage some participation. I understand if everyone chimed in right now, it'd get a little chaotic, but certainly we want to be clear, and we want to make sure that we put tools in your hands so that you can complete this. So we will go ahead and get started. Are you guys ready to learn about energy waste reduction compliance training? Start now. All right, so today we're going to talk about briefly just about MIRECS and EWR in general. We're then going to get into MIRECS account registration. So for most of you, you already have an account, so this won't be applicable, but there are a few utilities that will be joining in order to participate in EWR. And for that reason, we want to make sure we have a holistic training to include account registration. As part of account registration, we'll also quickly touch on updating company types, which could include moving from an electric service provider to gas or vice versa, just depending on how you are participating in EWR. Finally, I'll briefly touch on logins, just in case you need to assign specific EWR personnel a new login. After that, we will talk about activating EWR projects. EWR projects will be automatically created in your account for utilities that are participating, and then you will be responsible for activating the project, and us as the MIRECS administrator will approve it. Once the project's approved, we are going to talk to you about EWR data loading and the resulting credit issuance. As a precursor, EWR data must be self-reported by the utilities, and credit issuance is dependent on MPSC staff approval. Just got a little feedback that there is some echo, so I'm going to go ahead and mute everybody. And just if you need to speak, just be sure to unmute. And I'll keep an eye on the text thread as well, just to make sure that there we go. All right, so I appreciate the feedback. This is good. I'm going to assume that you got the gist of the opening, that we're going to, the agenda, talk about MIRECS and EWR, go into a brief overview of registering or editing your account, the process of activating EWR projects, and then we're going to talk about EWR data loading, which will be self-reported, and then the resulting credit issuance, which is dependent on MPSC staff approval. Once you have EWR credits in your account, we're also going to show you how to make EWR transfers and the actual compliance submission. And then we'll finally finish up with just an overall summary of the entire process. During this training, I want to draw attention to the format. So the slides will be very high level, and a majority of the training will be live demonstration. So you'll notice as we go through the slides, there'll be subpoints for jumping into live demonstrations, and there'll also be links to to helpful user guides that are basically going to spell out all the steps for future use. All right, with that, is there any questions on the agenda before we go ahead and get started? All right. Well, we'll go ahead and just briefly, Katie already touched on this, so we're not going to spend too much time, but just about MIRECS and EWR. So in terms of MIRECS, MPSC has established the Michigan Renewable Energy Certification System as the REC certification tracking system for the state. And we as APX, the company, developed and administer that system. In terms of the EWR program, it's as part of Public Act 342, which has amended Act 295, and MIRECS will be used so that you can mirror and demonstrate your EWR compliance through the system, and MPSC staff will then be able to review it again in the system, similar to renewable energy compliance, which a lot of you are already familiar with. All right, so we'll go ahead and get into account registration. As I touched on previously, a lot of you utilities will already have an account, but we want to be sure that anybody who's joining for EWR purposes still has understanding how they get up and running. So to register a new Michigan Utility Service Provider account, you're going to, well, actually, first, if you want to participate in EWR compliance, you need to have an account. And in order to do that, you just provide basic account information, go through the registration, activate the account by validating your email and login and password, and then the MIRECS administrator will be able to approve the account based on the information provided. Additionally, you'll be able to update your account, as mentioned, if you need to add gas EWR functionality, electric EWR, vice versa. All right, so now we'll go in, I'll show you the actual account registration process. So at this point, before I get into actual demonstrations, are there any questions? All right, that's good. All right, so in going through, this page should look very familiar to everyone, but instead of logging in, if you do not have an account, you would go to register here. Go ahead and select that if you're looking to set up a new account. This pop-up screen will lay out the steps that we're going to go through for account registration. And then I want to draw special attention to the user type at the bottom, which will need to be selected to move forward. Now, for everyone here and for EWR purposes, you're going to select Michigan Utility Service Provider. Now, this is an important distinction in EWR where previously all utilities were known as electric service providers. Because of the new distinction with gas, the account type has been changed to Michigan Utility Service Provider. So go ahead and select that and hit Continue Registration. Now we're taken to the terms of use, which again, most of you have probably completed, but it's worth looking at once again. Now the terms of use have not been updated with the EWR, so we can just quickly go through it and click off Agree next to the actual terms of use, agree to ownership, fees, payments and taxes, disclaimers, limitation and liability, logins, passwords, registry IDs, and at the bottom just attest that you have filled that out correctly. All right, once you agree, now you're taken to the actual account registration page. So you'll see my new account application. We'll see that account type at the top has already been populated with Michigan Utility Service Provider. And here under that, next to a company type, you will see this is where you would specify whether you're electric and or gas EWR. So in this case, we're going to choose whether it's electric or gas. For right now, I'm going to add electric after, so I'm just going to select gas service provider down here. And you'll see when I select gas, that extra criteria shows up under Michigan Utility Service Provider information, which includes your previous year's retail gas sales. So just go through the account registration page, entering your company information, the information about your utility, the account manager information, which is very important, drawing special attention to the email, which will be used to validate identities in the case of lost logins and forgotten security question and answer. Enter the billing contact information for who should be receiving invoices. And then finally, the login name, password, and as previously specified, the security question and answer. All right, so I've actually already gone through this, so I'm not going to submit a new application. But at this point, it would be up to the MIRECS administrator would be notified that a new account has been registered, and they would review it. If there were any questions regarding the application and the information entered, we would reach out to you directly and possibly bring MPSC staff into the discussion. But assuming that everything checks out perfect with this, the account will get approved. Now, before I log in as this new account holder, does anyone have any questions? So because when I unmute everyone, the echo gets pretty bad, if you want to raise your hand, I could unmute you specifically, or you could type into the text thread and we can answer your questions there. But I understand at this point this is all pretty basic stuff. So in going through, this is your new, this is your account homepage. You'll notice that because we selected gas service provider, that an EWR project is automatically created. And you can see that under project management module here on the right. And this will be your new EWR project. So it's automatically created with the name recognition of the utility service provider and then the company name gas EWR. And you'll see that this one is already approved. I've already gone through it, but I'm going to show you what goes into what you're going to see once you sign up. All right, so before we get into project registration, I want to draw attention to if you want to update your account type. So you'll see here, if you go to the top left under registration, change profile, you'll see now that company type is locked in. And we previously selected gas service provider, so it's locked in there. If you want to, for instance, add electric or take away gas, something like that, you would reach out to us as the MIRECS administrator, and we would assist you with making that update. So I'll go ahead and make that change on the back end right now. If you just stand by. So you've requested that electric service provider be entered, be validated as the administrator, and we make that update. And now you'll see at the top here, company type now includes electric service provider. All right, so if we go back to our homepage now, you'll see that you have a second EWR project that's automatically created, and this will be an electric EWR project. Now this is important. When you log in for the first time, you're going to see these EWR projects with this need info status. And we're going to get into project registration next. but I first want to make sure you see that. All right, and just as we're finishing this up, if you look, you'll see that EWR compliant subaccounts are also automatically created as part of choosing that account type. All right, and then just very briefly, I want to draw attention to account management on the left. You should take note that if you want to add a specific login for a new EWR personnel, that you can select Review, Edit, Add Logins, and you'll be able to add a new login, and then on the next page, assign specific permissions. So I encourage you, if you have new personnel that is going to be EWR specific, that you assign them their custom login, and if they need some individual hand-holding from us, we'll be glad to assist with that. All right, and now returning to the slides, we're going to talk about activating EWR projects. Any questions on registering or updating an existing account in MIRECS? I'll be quiet this morning, but that's okay. I'll assume that I'm being very informative and thus answering all your questions proactively. So moving along, we're going to get into activating EWR projects, which I just touched on, which is probably the most important step. So yes, so in terms of registering EWR projects, as previously specified, EWR projects are going to be automatically created with the need info status, and that is going to be dependent on your account type as a utility service provider and your company type, whether it be electric and or gas. All right. And then for right now, we're going to get into how you activate your EWR project. So you wouldn't register it like you would a normal project, but you still have to take action in order for the administrator to be notified of a new project. Once that activation takes place, the MIRECS administrator will review the project, and if everything checks out, the EWR project will be approved, and then you'll be ready to start entering EWR data. At this point, before I go through, I want to draw attention to the slides at the bottom that we have links at the bottom here on many slides that are going to go to specific training for what we're talking about. So these slides will be distributed after the call, but you'll see here that there are specific training for each one of these sections that'll go through how we're actually doing this, and if you need specific step-by-step after the fact, these are here for you. And there will also be other user guides that will be distributed to aid in this process. All right, so in just getting back into it, now we're going to go back to our test account and show you how to activate your EWR project. All right, so we're back in our test account. As previously mentioned, the electric or the gas EWR was previously approved in anticipation of this demonstration, but I'm going to show you this new electric EWR that was just created and is very similar to what you'll see later today when this functionality is activated on your accounts. So in order to activate your project, locate it in the project management module, isolate the exact project that you want to activate. In this case, it's electric EWR. We know that because it's in a need info under the status column. So go ahead and select the project name. All right, now we're getting into the project information. You'll see, compared to normal project registration, that the information is a lot more abbreviated and there's not nearly as many required fields that you need to enter. So the main one at the top is going to be where the EWR credits go. In this case, we don't have custom sub-accounts, so it'll just go to default active account. If you'd like to set up a custom sub-account for EWR credits, we have user guides for that, and I encourage you to follow up with us after this call, and we can help you set up on that. But for now, we'll just use the default active sub-account. You'll see project name is automatically created, United States, Michigan, electric savings as the fuel type, is all automatically created. The only thing left to enter on the first page is utility type, which in most cases is going to be regulated. So click the radio button for utility type, and then click Next. The second page is even more abbreviated, as you'll see information for reporting entity ID, and state voluntary program administrator. So when you select reporting entity, you'll see that you don't have any other option but to self-report. As I alluded to earlier, that is a requirement for EWR data, that it must be self-reported by the utility, and there are a couple ways to do that, and we'll get into that in the next section. So just go ahead and select self-reporting. Note that the reporting entity ID is auto-populated with MI, then the generator number, which in this case is 458. Michigan PSC is the only option you have for the program administrator. And we can either click Next here to go to the final page. We can go back if you have questions or if you want to update it. Or if you get cold feet and maybe want to come back at a later time, you can click Save right now. But I feel confident in these first two pages, so I'm going to go to the last page. Now, the last page is you're not going to have to change anything. Michigan eligibility is automatically selected. You'll see fuel type at the top is electric savings EWR, which is specific, relates to the project name, the project fuel type, and will only be eligible for your EWR electric compliance. These other certifications are not applicable, so you can go ahead and leave them no. Now we will submit for approval. All right, your facility has been created. At this point, the MIRECS administrator is notified that a new EWR project has been activated, and we can now conduct our review. Any questions on that first step of activation?
Oh, hello, this is Hubert. Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So would we be creating, so I see this is for gas and electric, and the EWR credit, I was thinking was only electric related. So are we being asked to include the energy savings that's included in our reconciliation each year?
So I wasn't sure if MPSC staff was going to chime in. So there are two types. There is gas EWR as well as the electric. So in the case of electric, it would be reduction, and then in the case of gas, it would be MCF, so million cubic feet. I'm not sure if that answers your question.
Not really. So we have
Hubert, this is Katie.
Yeah.
I think later on in the training, just knowing what's coming up, we'll get to that. And then, because you'll see where you'll actually input the data for both gas and electric. Doug will go through an example for that. And, but yeah, what's in your reconciliation, just to answer your basic question, what's in your reconciliation should tie to what's in MIRECS. But in a few minutes, we'll go through where you actually input the data for the MCF and the megawatt hours.
Okay, so this is more than just the EWR credit that get converted to REC.
Well, are you asking like the financial incentive piece, if that's in here too? And
no, just the credit that we convert into RECs versus savings.
Oh, yeah, yep, and that's a big advantage of having both our and RECs and essentially EWR and RPS in the same system, is that yes, we'll be able to do the transfer to REC. Yes, that's an example that would go through today as well. And Doug, if I'm incorrect about that, if we could add that on just to show how we could convert REC, I believe we talked about that.
Okay.
All right, great. Thanks for the question, and yeah, you'll see in the coming steps how that is addressed. I think we might have found the culprit of the echo. No. All right, well, let's get in. I'm going to mute everyone, but feel free to unmute yourself if you need to chime in or instant message as well. Okay, so in moving forward with the Project Red activation, you'll see now that this electric EWR is pending. So it's gone from need info to a pending status, meaning you've activated. At this point, the MIRECS administrator should be able to quickly review this, and I'll go ahead and do that right now. So stand by. All right, let's take a look. All right, now both of our EWR projects are approved. So this is a crucial step in taking your EWR compliance and getting it completed, as you won't be able to enter data and thus receive RECs until or EWR credits until your project is approved. All right. Any questions on project activation? All right, great. So now our account has either been registered or updated, or it was already good to go. And then we've activated our applicable EWR projects, so they're now approved in our system. Now's the point where you actually enter your data so that credits can be issued. So there's two ways to report data, both of which involve the utility doing it themselves. The first is to self-report EWR data directly in the UI. I'll demonstrate both these shortly, but just want to briefly talk about how you do that. So you would go through and just select through the project management module the date you want to enter and add an input. Additionally, you have the option to report the data through an EWR or CSV or TXT upload, so a data file, and we'll show you that as well. All right, so now we'll return back to our trustee test account. So we'll see here that we have our two projects ready to go. I'm first going to show you how to self-report through the UI right here. So for this one, we're going to upload data or enter data for this electric EWR. So go ahead and locate it in your project management here. And next, under the review data self-report column, select, in this case, it'll say self-report, but you'll see once we do it a couple times that it will show the last upload date. Either way, it's a link you can click, and go ahead and click it now. So here you're going to see your data review screen. So since we've never loaded data, there's no records, but you can see at the top that you are listed as a reporting entity, the reporting entity ID we previously talked about, the project number and name, which is all auto-populated, and we're ready to add new input right here. So go ahead and select that. And here, this is where it comes in, where you would actually enter the megawatt reduction we talked about. So I want to go through each field on this screen because it's very important. So for vintage, you're going to select from what year this reduction occurs. We're going to do 2017 right now. If it's a megawatt reduction, confirm if it's megawatts or in kilowatts. Most of the time it's going to be megawatts. Enter the value, which you specified from your reconciliation. In this case, we'll do some simple 100. Report begin date or end date. I understand it'll probably be for the full year, but for simplicity, I'm just going to have it be for December. if there's any kind of splits involved, which should not be the case. It would be 100 here, which auto defaults. And then this is where the actual EWR credit value auto-populates. So you'll see that based on what we entered, total reduction 100 for 2017, with 100% split, that we're going to get 100 EWR credits. If that looks good to you, check off the I attest that this information is accurate here at the bottom, and submit. Confirm the change. And we'll now see that this has been entered. Now we have a record of what we reported for 2017 vintage. At this point, it's still, the status is account holder accepted, meaning you signed off on it, but credits have not yet issued. And we'll get into that in the next section. Any questions on self-reporting via the UI directly in the project management module? All right, so I'm going to show you the second way using the gas EWR, which is a data file, which many of you are familiar with, whether it's a text file or a CSV file. In order to access that module, you're going to scroll down. Let me just see. Yeah, so you were just asked if the begin date should be January. Yeah, the way I understand it, Katie or Karen could chime in, is that it's normally going to be for the full year, but for the purpose of this test, I just did a simple for the month. So I'm not sure how the reconciliation is allocated on their end, Katie, but you will have the ability to enter it for the full year.
Yes, it'll be for the full year. This is Karen.
Okay. All right, great. So in going to the next way to upload, I want to make sure you guys you all are aware that you scroll down here through your notifications, through your inventory, through your sub-account to this meter data loading module here. You'll see both of your projects are eligible for meter data loading, and you're going to populate this information here to load it. So I'm again select 2017. Because this is a gas that we're going to upload for, we want to change the unit of measure to MCS. So this is important or the file will fail. Now, we're going to upload a file. I've already created a test file. Let me show you what it looks like. So this is what it's going to look like. This should look pretty familiar, and it will mirror what you would see in the CSV. So we have the generator number here, the reporting entity number, the vintage, and then the complete begin date, which you'll see on this one is the full year, January through December, and then the value, which in this case is 100. I understand in real actuality the gas and electric aren't going to look the same, but for the purpose of uploading, that's what the file would look like. All right, so we're now ready to upload, and we'll go through and click upload right here to actually enter the file for, in this case, gas. So this is a good message for anyone who's uploaded. If the total lines equal the total loaded and there's no error comment, you are good to go. So that file has been loaded successfully. And when we return now to the project management information here at the top, you'll see that both projects now have generation entered. And this is what I was talking about. You can see now in this self-report column that it's going to show the last end date of data you entered. So at this point, your data is entered, and it's ready to be reviewed. So I know some of you are thinking, can I just approve it myself? Which in normal renewable energy credits, you do have the ability to click on the status here, go through and be like, yeah, this is good. I'm ready. Let's accept it and issue. So for EWR credits, you do not have the ability to accept it on your own. So this data is going to need to be reviewed by Michigan PSC. And once they sign off on it, then credits will be issued. Right? So as I specified, these, unlike normal RECs, EWR credits are going to need to be reviewed. And once they get approved, I'm going to show you where you can view your actual EWR inventory. So just really quickly, while you stand by, I'm going to review those uploads and approve them so that credits can be issued. And then again, I'll show you what that looks like. Is there any questions on entering EWR data as a whole? So this is a very important step. There's a lot of, there's some areas that can go wrong. You have to get it right in order for it to be approved. Is there any questions about this? So I have a question from that. How long does the EWR review process take? So I'm going to assume you mean the EWR data review, not the project review, which goes really quick. The EWR data review for, I'll let MPSC staff, I assume it depends how accurate and if everything matches up. It's obviously quicker, but I'll let you all at MPSC chime in on that.
This is Karen. I would assume that as soon as we get the email that it's been entered, it probably wouldn't take more than 48 hours. I mean, in the beginning, it might take a little bit longer if we have a lot coming in on the same day, but I don't expect it to take very long. And we do get an email, right, Doug, about the
Yep, you will get a notification that new data is ready for you to review. And then we talked about, the best way to do that. All right, so let me, I'm mimicking what MPSC staff will do on the back end to accept those. Obviously, I'm not validating the data very clearly, so we'll be able to do it quickly, but I just want to show you what the credits look like. All right. So when we go now, let me show you. So you'll see that you got a notification that these credits have been issued. And if you want to double check, you'll see that the status, when you select this review question, now says credits created. All right, for both. Both will have that because I approved both. And so now you have EWR credits, and you can view them here. So you'll see them both in your default active subaccount. As you recall earlier, we elected to just put them into the default active subaccount, but if you do have an interest in putting them in a custom active subaccount, you can reach out to us at a later time and we can show you that process. All right, so at this point, we've gone through activating your project or your account and modifying it if needed. The actual process of certifying your project by activating it in the review that MIRECS staff does. Once your project's approved, I showed you how you self-report data, the two different ways, which are through the UI or via data upload. And now MPSC staff has reviewed the data, and EWR credits, both gas and electric in this case, have been issued. All right, what do you guys think? This is pretty exciting, right? So I see a couple questions came in. So yeah, it's a good question. So would a new project need to be set up each year? So no. Your project is going to be good going forward. So you'll be able to use that EWR project in perpetuity as long as you're in a part of this program. So that's it. The project is venerable from year to year. And then the things that would need to be are specific to the year is the compliance sub-account, which we're going to get into, and that is automatically created every year for you. So, so once you complete these steps, you won't have to, going forward, all you're going to have to do is enter data every year and make your transfers in your compliance submission. You're not going to have to, once everything's set up, your account will be good to go, your project will be, your EWR projects will be ready to use, and you'll be good to go. In terms of when these another question that came in, when new projects get added each year. So you're only going to have one each, and they're going to be added based on your company type right when you sign up for this. So probably at the end of the day today, depending on the utilities that attended today, and we can sign off on them joining, you'll have that right away. So in this case, it'll be this November. Any other questions before we get into another crucial step, which is the actual transfers of EWR credits in the compliance submission? All right. So moving along here, we're getting into EWR transfer. So you have your credits now in your active account, but you need to allocate them to an applicable compliance sub-account. So you will make transfers to your compliance sub-account that is going to mirror and support your compliance filing with Michigan Public Service Commission. And that's going to, and a little bit about your EWR compliance sub-account. You know, those, as I mentioned, are going to be automatically created on an annual basis, and there will be a separate compliance sub-account for each compliance year, so 2017, 2018, etc. And before we return to our test account, again, I want to draw attention to one of our user guides for this here at the bottom. I'll also show you links at the end, and these slides will be distributed. But if you check this out, you'll see that what I'm about to show you is spelled out step by step, so you can be, there's no reason you won't be able to navigate this process. All right, so let's get into it. What do you say? Making transfers. All right, back to our trustee sub-account. So our utility service provider test account. So here's our project. We've uploaded data going down. We have our EWR credits. This is actually important. I want to take a second to step back. So this screen has changed for you all, that most of you that have used the system before. You're used to seeing RECs, incentive RECs, and ACECs. You'll see a new column here for EWR credits. All right. So in order to access the transfer page, you can click any of these positions. But in this case, we'll just go ahead and click next to active under EWR, this 200 right here. These are all links. Click this, and it will take you to a list of credits in your sub-account. And this is where you would allocate which credits you want to be transferred. All right. So in going through, in this case, we only have these two positions. But as many of you know, when you go into your sub-accounts, there can be hundreds and hundreds of positions. And trying to isolate the EWR credits and make sure you transfer the correct ones is an important step. So I just want to show you a quick filtering tool and make sure you're aware of it. Let's say we have a bunch of different types of credits on this page. If you select this mirror symbol on the top right of the table, this will take you to a screen that will help you filter. If you go down to credit type, simply select EWR. And now only EWR credits are going to be shown. So in this case, they're the same. I understand that. But that's a helpful tool as many of you utilities have a lot of credits in your account, which is a good thing. All right, so let's go ahead and take care of this electric compliance. So I want to satisfy my electric compliance. I've activated, my account's good to go. I activated my electric EWR project, for which you have one, and then you entered your 2017 data. The data was approved, and you got your 2017 electric EWR credits. Now, I want to transfer them to show my compliance. So I click this box to select this row. And let's say I only want to send 50 of them. I can put that there. Otherwise, it'll default to the full amount. I'm going to go ahead and send all 100 of these brand new EWR credits to my compliance sub-account. To initiate the transfer or to confirm the batch, here on the top right, you'll see total quantity, 100. That matches what you selected here. If everything checks out, hit batch transfer. All right, now we're taking to the transfer credit screen, and this is where you want to be very careful to select exactly what you want to do. So what I would suggest is confirm the credit details at the top. Be like, so yeah, this is that project, this is the amount, this is for the test, or the electric EWRs, 2017 vintage, Michigan, yes, okay, I'm comfortable with this. So now we're going to select where they are going. So if you were moving into another active account, it would be here. If it was REC compliance, it would be here. But in this case, we're talking about EWR compliance and showing your EWR compliance. So you're going to select this radio button right next to EWR compliance. All right, make sure that I know I'm being very detailed, but that is an important step. All right, and now you're going to select which EWR sub-account you want to go to. So you only have 2 to choose from. I want to draw special attention that you see that these are both electric compliance because we have electric EWRs. If this was gas, we would only have gas compliance accounts. So I'm going to select 2017 EWR compliance sub-account here, which again is automatically created for you. If there's any kind of category, if this is financial incentive, but in most cases it can be EWR compliance. All right, one more double check, it all looks good. If you're ready, click submit. Are you sure you want to transfer these credits into an EWR compliance sub-account? You betcha. Click OK. All right, so now these credits are in the new location. And you'll see here that they no longer say default active account. Their location is 2017 electric EWR compliance sub-account. All right, and you'll see now in your sub-accounts and account activity that they are no longer all in your active account. 100 of them are in this sub-account here. All right. Yeah, good question. So can a transfer to a compliance account be reverted to default active? Yes, absolutely. So let me quickly show you that. One important distinction is once you submit your compliance sub-account, which I'm going to show you in a little bit, once you submit it to MPSC staff, those recs are locked in and they're there for the duration until they get either, unless they can get rejected. So, but if you want to move them back, let's say, oh no, I meant to put them in 2018 or something like that. You can go ahead and select any of these positions again. I would just select this 100 we just moved, just so I see specifically that one. And along those same lines, you would select the rec or the position, confirm the amount, hit batch transfer, and now instead of EWR compliance, we're going to move it back to your active sub-account. So here, active sub-account, default active, submit. Good question. Thank you. Real quick before we wrap up this screen, I want to point out that the another account holder button, which is used to transfer credits, as well as the retirement, export, and bulletin board are not eligible for EWRs. All right, so these are your only options are, there's some rules around the amount that can be used for rec compliance, but you can move it to a different active account. And then for the main purpose of this discussion, you're going to use EWR compliance sub-account. All right, so we're going to go back to our home page. Yeah, we have another question about some of the specific rules. So 2017 EWR is transferred to 2018 rec compliance. I believe it's MPSC staff, you can confirm that, or Karen, I believe it's 10% is the rule.
It's actually 1/3 of their next year's
gotcha.
compliance amount. A little higher than RECs.
Yeah, gotcha. Right, so 1/3 of your next year's compliance total can be used for, of EWRs can be used for REC compliance. I would encourage you, if you have more questions about the specific rules of how RECs and EWRs can be used, for different types of sub-accounts, let us know. And, actually, we could probably publish something, maybe a notice after this of the exact. But again, it's all in the PA 342 notice as well. Another good question. Thank you. All right, how you all doing so far? Are you having fun? Promise there's not much more, but it's very important. All right, so all right. Okay, so we talked about transfers and EWR, the compliance sub-account, where it's going. Now we're going to actually show you what you see in the compliance sub-account. So you can check your progress towards this EWR compliance by reviewing your EWR compliance report. And the compliance report is going to display the quantity you've achieved and the quantity still needed to meet your annual requirement. All right, so as we get into that, we're going to return to old trustee test account. And we're going to show you the compliance report that I previously specified. Hold on one second while I make sure it's ready to go. Okay, so there's a couple places you can access your compliance sub-account, and more specifically the compliance report. Along your account holder reports, you'll see compliance report here. I'm going to show you that a little later as part of a different example, but I also want to show you can access your compliance report via your actual sub-accounts module right here. So I see, remember we moved the 100 in, and you can click under sub-account name, click the name. So just go ahead and select the sub-account you want to see. So I'm looking to validate how close am I to my 2017 electric EWR compliance. I'm going to select the corresponding sub-account. I see that my requirements entered, my filing deadline is going to be December 31st for everyone. And go ahead and select this link right here, compliance report. Now, please remember this if you remember anything. All right, so now we're here. This is what I've transferred. This is what I'm required to transfer, and this is what I'm allowed to, what I'm going to do. So let's review this. We see our compliance sub-account here. We see the compliance year, the deadline. This is an active right now because nothing's been submitted. And if there's any administrator notes, we'd enter it here. If you have notes, let's say, I'm only submitting 100 per our conversation we had with this person on this date. You can enter here. But let's just go over it. So we have our annual requirement, which is 100. The total credits is a total of all these that are eligible. So we sent 100 EWRs. So we have 100 total to satisfy this 100. And if we double check here, we've satisfied 100% of our 2017 compliance. There's zero delta, no difference in what we owe and what we've submitted. So what do you guys think? I think this is, I think we're ready to submit this account. All right, so we're going to submit this compliance sub-account to MPSE staff. This will lock the credits in. This is your submission. All right, so this is very important. Go ahead and hit submit. And of course, we're going to ask for a confirmation on something like this. So hit OK. All right. Just got a question coming in. Yeah, so the annual EWR compliance requirement will be entered will be provided by MPSE staff, but will be entered by the MIRECS administrator. And but here, let me show you something real quick along those lines. Thanks for pointing that out. And I'm sure you all are fine if we go off script for a second. Let's say this 2018 electric one. So I see, hold on one second. Let me set it up. If you all have questions while I look at this and show you another example, please chime in. Otherwise, we are nearing the finish. So you'll see here that this 100, let's say this is the 2018. You come in, you're like, why is my requirement 100? It's supposed to be 50. You can click dispute right here, and this will send a notification, fill in the dispute details. All right, and you can hit dispute, and now we're going to, you'll see that it's been cleared out, and now MPSC staff and MIRECS administrator will work with you to get that updated. So that's a little side example brought on by your question. I hope you don't mind the sidetrack. But yes, all right, so now, just to get back on schedule, we just reviewed our compliance sub-account, and we made our submission. So once you think you've transferred the sufficient amount, you've submitted it, submissions will be locked in, and MPSC staff will receive an automatic notification that your EWR compliance report has been submitted. Of course, if it's close to the deadline, I would suggest you follow up and just make sure everything's in order, but other than that, you should be good to go. So at this point, does anyone have any questions so far? We went through making sure your account's set up correctly, activating your EWR project or projects, entering EWR data via the 2 self-reporting methods, and transferring, once EWR credits get approved, transferring those credits into the compliance sub-account, and if everything checks out, submitting the compliance sub-account. So the deadline for submitting savings, which, correct me if I'm wrong, Karen or Katie, is the reduction, would be December 31st.
That is correct. Of the following year. So
yeah, the following year.
You would be reporting your 2017 generated credits before December 31st of 2018. And occasionally we have had a reconciliation that dragged on for whatever reason. But I think we can just take that by a case-by-case basis. That's very rare.
Gotcha. And then we just got a similar question that if we need to report for 2017, which is a yes, correct?
Correct.
So yeah, the reason we're doing this training now and releasing it now is that leaves you nearly 2 months to get this done, and we'll work with you closely, especially newer account holders, to just make sure we get the requirement entered, and then the project's approved, the data entered, and this we can all get this done before the December 31st deadline for your 2017 EWR compliance. All right, great. So now we're going to question about prior year information, 2009 through 2016 being entered, not for EWR. Is that your understanding as well, Karen?
It is. I just think maybe DT and consumers might be concerned that they have credits from prior years that they may be transferred into REC. So I guess I'm not sure on the REC side how that will be handled, those ones will be handled.
Gotcha. All right. Yeah, so in terms of RECs, those would have already been completed through 2016, and EWR is only 2017 going forward. All right, so now we're at the point where you've submitted. If there's no more questions up to that point, we'll finish up by talking about the actual compliance review by MPSC staff. So at this point, we've submitted our EWR credits to MPSC staff for review, and the ball is in their court to either approve or reject it. And if you are curious what's going on with your compliance subaccount, I can show you where you can see the status. So as we talked about before, you can always get to the compliance report through subaccounts down here. But for the case of looking at a specific status and a summary of all your subaccounts, I would suggest going down here under your account holder reports module and locating compliance reports. So go ahead and select compliance report. Now you'll see here that all your compliance subaccounts are here. They're all active with the exception of the one we just submitted, which is this 2017 electric EWR. And you'll see that the compliance phase it's in now is pending, which means MPSC staff has been notified and they are reviewing it. Just quickly, I saw a question, are there any additional reports required to be submitted along with the EWR credits? It's my understanding that the only report through MIRECS is that EWR compliance report, and then if there was any kind of follow-up, MPSC staff would reach out to you directly. Is that your understanding as well, Karen or Katie?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, so at this point, we're returning back to checking your status. So it's pending. At this point, your credits are locked in. MPSC staff is looking at this compliance subaccount and getting ready to review it. There's two things they can do. They can reject it, which means it's not what they needed to see, something needs to be changed, and at which time when they reject it, it will return the compliance subaccount to an active status, and you'll be able to move credits in and out of that account and then resubmit it. However, the better situation is that everything's in order. It mirrors your compliance filing with MPSC staff, and it gets accepted. So if they accept it, it will turn to approve, and those credits will be permanently retired. So if you want to stand by while I mimic that process in the background, we'll go ahead and show you what happens when they approve it. All right, so we're almost there. Just stand by. All right, so MPSC staff has received your 2017 electric EWR compliance submission. Everything checks out, and they approve it. So at this point, you'll see here on this page that the status is changed to retired. and now you're good to go. You have the date submitted. This is your validation that everything's checked out, and you've completed your 2017 electric EWR compliance submission. Should we clap? I feel like we should clap. So, all right, and going through, you'll see you would have received a notification that it was accepted, and at this point, you are all set with your compliance submission. So any questions before we just go into a review, as well as leave you with some helpful links and answer any lingering questions? Any questions specifically about the submitting your compliance sub-account and the MPSC staff review of that submission?
Doug, this is Katie. I wanted to just, as you're looking to submit, I know Karen had mentioned the 1/3 can go over to RECS. There is still, when you're submitting, make sure that you're still following the 10% rule. That 10% for EWRs that can be used for RECS or RECS can be used for EWR compliance still exists. So there are still limits that are within the legislation that need to be followed when you're putting the RECS in or any type of credit in your submissions.
Gotcha. Thanks for bringing attention to that. And yeah, as we go through this first round of compliance submissions and transfers, we encourage you to reach out to either us at APX MIRECS Administrator or MPSC staff directly for specific legislation questions and rules, and just make sure we're all on the same page and getting through this accurately. All right, great. So just in summary, go through the entire process. So we talked about MIRECS as a whole and the EWR compliance functionality. We talked about account registration, whether it was a brand new account or editing an existing company type, as well as if you needed to add a specific login. We then went into activating your EWR projects, which are automatically created, but then the utility must manually activate it. The MIRECS administrator will review it, and then if everything checks out, the EWR projects are approved. We then talked about EWR data loading, and as you recall, the two ways you can do that, which is adding an input through the UI or uploading a data file. And we also confirmed the credit issuance of EWR credits, which involves MPSC staff review. And then finally, we talked about the EWR transfers into a compliance sub-account and the actual submission process of your EWR compliance. So with that, that is the entire process for EWR compliance in terms of MIRECS system. I will send out these slides along with the recording of this session, including and links to the Knowledge Center, the slides we talked about, which include the EWR training guides. So everything we talked about today will be, you'll have a link to it, which should be able to help you step by step. You'll also have this recording, these slides, and then of course we are also available to answer via telephone call or email. So with that, I want to open the floor to any lingering questions that might be going on, anything for while we have MPSC staff and us as the MIRECS administrator on the line.
Any question from Jan?
Yeah, so there's a couple templates out there. I can send you, if you want that template I uploaded today, anyone who wants that, just either chime in right now, or you can send an email to mirecs@apx.com, and we'll send that over. Actually, that's a good call. Anytime you have any questions or want something, an email to mirecs@apx.com, send it to not only myself, but other administrators, and it's just a very efficient way to get training material in your hand And of course, you're welcome to call as well. And plus, all right, sounds great. Just quickly, I want to confirm that this functionality is now available in MIRECS, and the applicable EWR projects will begin to show up in your account today. So if you want to get started on this, you can do it right away, and we're available to answer any calls. If not, you know, you should all definitely plan on getting started next week. Yeah, so just got a question about the link for account activation or setting up an account. Yeah, that will be provided as part of this training slides. If you want to connect right after this, we can, you know, there's only a few of you that need to activate. I'd be glad to walk you through that as well. So if you want to, why don't you go ahead and I'll take a note. And we'll be in touch. So yeah, if you want any links right now, like go ahead and enter your email into the chat field, and I'll send you links right away, and then there'll be a formal training package that will be delivered early next week that'll include all this stuff. Oh. All right, I see a couple of emails coming in. So again, if you want any of this stuff right away, I can get you some drafts in your hands to, you know, within the next half an hour. Otherwise, there'll be a formal training package that's sent out early next week. All right, well, I'll stay on the line for another couple minutes just in case there's lingering questions. But with that, that will formally conclude this training session on EWR functionality. And I thank you all for your time. Enjoy your Friday afternoon and have a nice weekend.
Thank you, Doug.